right. All right. Welcome, everybody, to the Gray Matters, where we discuss more than just the hot topics and headlines of the day from a black man's perspective. We appreciate that we're not a monolith, and every subject deserves to be explored with nuance, giving a new and fresh perspective from all sides of the culture. So, hopefully, today we'll be able to bring you that uh, nuance, that class, that fun, little sizzle to a conversation that will matter. And our panel, as always, consists of three guys that are absolutely nothing alike. And you'll soon come to find out just how much we love each other in spite of our sometimes very, very big differences. I'm Billy Craig, joining you once again from beautiful, sunny Delaware today. And today I'm also joined by my usual sidekicks. We've got Daryl McDaniels out in Nashville and Jam Master Jay joining us from somewhere outside of Portland. How you guys doing, gentlemen?
We all good,
I'm
Reverend
good.
Run.
I'm not making no promises that this conversation is going to stay.
Right.
We're gonna kick it off and see where it goes.
Right. Are you doing this? Are you gonna do this one from the bathtub, Reverend Run?
What? That's how. Listen, you know what? No, let's get to it. Just go get to it. Let's go, Ive. What you got?
Well, here we are. This one, this is a whole ball of wax here. There's gonna be a lot to unpack, but we'll get it started.
My chair.
Yeah, buddy. So recently, there've been more things added to the list. What list? I'm glad you asked. The list of things that guys cannot do because it makes them gay if they do it. So in the last couple of weeks, we have seen online, because that's where we go for all the good topics. That if a man owns a cat, that he's gay or suspect at best. I've also seen men can't own like regular dogs, like they got to be pit bulls, Rottweilers. That because if not, depending on what kind of dog you have, that puts you on the list too. And then lastly, the one that really just turned this thing all the way up for me was if you call as a son your father daddy,
okay,
you are gay.
Wow.
Yeah, and that was the tipping point.
That was
because I thought it couldn't get worse than the cat.
I saw one where if you sleep on your stomach, you gay.
Yeah, I did see that too.
I honestly, I kind of just dismissed that as I'm not even going to get his oxygen. But now that you mention it, yeah, the list keeps piling up.
It's getting and the only reason that I wanted us to continue to say these is, and I'm glad, Paul, that you mentioned that, because now we got a record, because I'm losing track of the damn list. It is too many things now of what we can and cannot do to be straight. So the topic that I have for us to explore today is,
God forbid they tackle masturbation.
Oh my. Well, and since we're here, it's funny that you bring that up, Paul. I actually had a buddy of mine, a real good friend of mine, but he was weird about this. One of the things he said he felt like, of all things, he felt like oral sex actually teetered on gay because it was something that a man or a woman could do. So since it wasn't something that was explicitly something that you could do with a female, that it was just like you can have anal sex with anybody. Like it literally, he was that rigid with it, and I had questions. But this is before this list came in, and I was just like,
So All y'all.
But continue on, Andre. Go ahead.
That was a curveball I wasn't ready for. I'll be honest. But so my question for today, at least to start off with initially, is the standard of masculinity, what the societal norm of masculinity, is that shifting? Or is this like an attempt by people who are homophobic to try to push a narrative? I just want to unpack all of this, because like I said, the list is growing, and we've all been since childhood hearing the fact that, there's an agenda. They got an agenda on television to put gay people out so that more people end up gay, and blah, blah. Like, we totally ignoring that gay people been around since the Romans, but that's neither here nor there.
Since people.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's where I wanted to get off to a roaring start is just like, what are we doing here? Like, what like, why are people making up all these rules for what masculine is and what masculine is not, and who the hell put them in charge? Like, that's where I would like to start. And so, because you threw a damn curveball like right in the middle of a full count, Rev, I need you to.
No, I don't want. No, wait a minute. Hold up now. Listen, I mean, we listen. The only reason I was bringing that up is because what I have found is that, at least for me, I have found that many people question and even challenge masculinity because there's kind of two parts of the conversation. There is your preferred sexuality, because I don't believe that just because you are not heterosexual male that you somehow lack masculinity. But what I've discovered is that I'm actually in the minority on that. Most people, they start with your sexuality. And I'll say this. I know for a fact, because I have quite a few homosexuals that I've grown up with, that I've had family members who are, and I can tell you right now, you will find out just how masculine they are if you try them. Because a lot of people think that you're just gonna walk up on some gay guy because that's
good luck with that.
Yeah, man,
it's
a man. My prayers.
It's still a man.
Yeah, a lot of, and I'll say it like this: a lot of your favorite heroes on the gridiron and out there on the court, they are gay. But there's a stigma that comes with that, so they're not going to announce that and make that public. But so I feel like, to start, that is kind of where, at least for me, I start. Do we start with your sexuality or not? Because I kind of feel like there's a lot of things that we end up running into a problem, because it's the same thing when we challenge people's blackness just because maybe they married somebody or they're dating somebody outside of their race. So then we challenge their blackness, like, well, he ain't really black because he married some Puerto Rican or some white chick, or he got biracial. And it's like, So that's the first thing I feel like we have to tackle with that before we even get into some of the more granular stuff. And then the second thing, and I'm gonna throw it right back to you, because you're the one that had the list. But the second part of it is, I find that anytime, if you want to have an intelligent argument, if we want to have an intelligent conversation about it, then that implies that there be intelligence. And so with that, I find it troubling where we kind of, like, whenever we did book reports and stuff like that and papers where there's sourcing, sometimes I feel like we get our sources from incredible, or I shouldn't say incredible, non-credible sources. Like, that wouldn't pass if you wrote that paper back in college, or if, even in high school, that would not pass if you put that in the bibliography, because we would be like, that's not a credible source. It needs to be from an encyclopedia. It needs to be from a scholar. It needs to be from a medical book, dictionary, whatever. And I think that, to your point, even though it's comical and we laugh, even like when a person sits there and says, if you own a cat, that, that's gay, or you sleep on your stomach, that's suspect, you're gay. Like, we have to consider the sources in this type of thing, because I'll be honest with you, if we don't, I mean, I'm almost 50 years old here in a couple years. I would be chasing my masculinity like for the rest of my life because it's always changing based on what people think of masculinity. Like, there was a time when if you didn't smoke cigarettes or the brand of cigarettes you smoked meant like you were
Or
cool,
if you
no
didn't
pun
drink
intended.
whiskey.
If you didn't drink whiskey or put some hair on your chest, that kind of, John Wayne was considered masculine. And then you had, he was masculine for an old white dude, but then it was, if you can, how many women can you have sex with? That was what was considered masculine. That is how we kind of, we have these standards, and then you're a sucker or you're not really masculine if you, like, maybe you're, I don't know, like the concept of abstinence. And I'm saying this even from a faith and religious standpoint. Very often the hypocrisy that you find in so many faith institutions, it's not the written rule, but it's the unspoken rule that you see even back in Jesus' time, where women were expected to be pure and chaste and to be abstinent. But with men, like, if you're abstinent, there's got to be something wrong. Either your junk don't work, or you're in between. You're trying to decide whether or not you like men or women, or there's got to be something, because the idea of just keeping the temple clean and not being out there with a bunch of women, it's like, no, there's got to be something wrong. But we impose that on women, and that's another topic for another day. But I'm just saying that when we think about masculinity, I think that the sourcing is what I'll call it, needs to be called into question. But that's only after we deal with the fact that masculinity has to be decoupled and separated from your actual sexual identity and sexual preferences.
Oh, absolutely. I don't understand why they're intertwined. They're independent of each other.
There's a connection, but they're not necessarily like, there's no apples to apples, like this is directly related to that. I don't feel like
I don't
fair.
believe. I don't believe a woman can be masculine.
Okay.
Let's start there.
Let's talk about that masculine energy conversation, because now I'm like, let's go. I'm birdmanishly
You're
waiting.
a woman. You're a woman. Whatever energy you're exhibiting is that of a woman.
Ooh, so say that with some bass in your voice.
So just because you think being loud, belligerent, or violent is or having some sort of pain tolerance is equivalent to masculinity, just because you're exhibiting it with the vagina, which means you're exhibiting female energy. It's feminine energy. Now,
just the estrogen alone is what you're saying.
Alone.
Estrogen versus testosterone.
This is science, man.
Yeah, right.
There's no way a woman cannot exhibit man energy or masculine energy. A man cannot exhibit female or feminine energy. So
it's very black and white for you, is what you're saying. It's not confusing.
So, and masculinity isn't something, like you said, that is tied down to pain tolerance or the tone of your voice, or how many muscles you got, or how many women you can put in your bed, right? That's not, or how much you can lift in a sitting. That's not what those are things that, in my opinion, may determine ability or toughness, but that's not masculinity. All men ain't tough. In fact, most of them ain't.
What?
Most of them soft.
Boy, man, you don't find out until it's too late.
It is what it is.
That's real.
So just because they ain't, what you would call rough and rugged dudes, don't mean they ain't masculine. Because if you look at the lion's share of men, most of them will run from a fight.
And you know what it's called? That you know what that really should be labeled, rather than masculine and feminine? That's called wisdom.
I mean, that's why a lot of dudes do the things they do, because they operate, or criminals, I should say, they operate on the premise that you're not going to do nothing back.
Yep. Yeah, it's
So
it's exploitation at its finest.
So if I go upside your head, you're not gonna fight back.
Mhm.
If I take something from you, you're gonna freeze up or you're gonna cower if I stand over you. That's how most bullies and criminals operate, because most men or women ain't gonna do nothing. They gonna fold. So that doesn't mean that those men who are afraid, being afraid doesn't mean you're not masculine. Some of the greatest things have been accomplished in fear, right?
Absolutely.
You can't tell, you know. So this thing, like you said, tying it to sexuality is also, we gotta untangle it from sexuality. We also have to untangle it from toughness, because most people ain't tough. And back to the original point of the show, I know that's on the list. If you ain't tough, you gay, right?
Right.
Yeah.
You know, if you can't run and jump, you can't hoop, you can't rap, right? You can't play football. You ain't no athlete, you gay. Now, I've seen men say that to other men.
I've heard that.
Yeah,
like I'm that guy. I'm literally that guy.
If you don't know your way around some power tools, you gay.
Yeah. Can't change your own oil, can't change your tire.
Right.
The list goes on and on.
It does. Right. And for that, because you brought up a point that I'm about to ask a question of, because I think we got a separate path to discuss. But yeah, no, and I get what you're saying as far as the term, like the definitions of masculine and feminine, like where that comes from. And before we dive further, we're not even saying that this is all females saying this, because as they just stated, we're hearing, like, we hear this from our counterparts, which is going to bring up my other point, or my question. So when we were growing up, it was, you know, I'm gonna sock you in the chest, I'm gonna toughen you up, like that kind of thinking. But you just said that being afraid isn't necessarily a female trait or a male trait. Like, it's called smart.
No, I get scared.
Yeah.
No, but so this is my point though. Like, I wasn't taught that growing up. Like, I
wasn't taught that either.
I knew that was coming. I
had to learn that as a man.
Right. So
I got punched in the chest.
Me too,
man. Like, that was the
better not cry.
We all did.
So
and you better not cry.
So as all of us are fathers here, this is where I was going with this. Since all of us are fathers, and we went through, you can call it trauma, you can call it whatever you want to. It was. Yeah. Now we look back on it as trauma. Like, growing up, we thought that was just a black kid.
Back in the 70s and the 80s, we didn't even know that word existed.
Man, right. That was just the experience. But
you just hope your friends didn't see it.
Right. So they would laugh at you.
I hope that so they can't talk about it when we go to school tomorrow.
Knowing they got folded a week earlier. So
right.
But are y'all teaching y'all kids that it's like, it's okay to be, you know, afraid? It's okay to have feelings, like literally just feelings, because we was taught men don't, like, what's that feeling shit? Get that out of here. Like, are y'all teaching that?
What I will say this just quickly, what I'm teaching my son, especially since we're talking about men, obviously, I mean, and it's the same principle for my daughter as well. But what I'm teaching my son, who's a teenager now, is that it is okay to call, and you use the word trauma. It's okay to call trauma. It is okay to call fear. It is okay to call these things by their name. And I give him license for that because, frankly, my experience growing up was anytime I showed fear, emotion, hurt, discomfort, pain, those things were not only labeled as you're soft, you're weak, you're gay, but it was literally weaponized against me. And so what I ended up doing was I grew up suppressing, which is natural. Most people will end up doing that because they don't want to. Shame is what you're actually running from. If that's when we really get down to it. You're running from embarrassment and shame.
Embarrassment and shame.
More than anything else. I don't even, like, but if you're in an environment where it's okay for you to express it, not sulk. We ain't talking about you just gonna live there, but
No.
we literally weren't even given the allowance to be free to admit that something hurt my feelings or something physically hurt me. We weren't even allowed to cry when we had. I broke my leg in 8th grade in a football game and was sitting there sucking it up on the sideline. Didn't even know it was broken. I went back in the game. I was a runner. I went back in the game. Like, that is the mentality that we had. And I mean, I would never send my son. He's the age I am, like back when that happened. He's that age now. He was in 8th grade. I would never send my son back out there with his leg swollen to the size of a cantaloupe. But back then, they all they did was cut the tape and retape it, send me back 8th grade. That was frankly, that was a failing on the part of our parents and adults and things like that. And there's no, it's not like we go back and judge them on a sliding scale. We understand that the culture was different back then. But what I find though is giving him room to know that it is safe for you to express these things and you won't be shamed or vilified or criticized for it. That is the type of thing that I've frankly seen great results from it. Now, I know it's early. He's only 14, but I've seen great results from it because he is a lot more expressive. He shares things that were thoughts that I had when I was his age, but he shares it because he can. We couldn't. Where was I going to go? Who was I going to talk about? Like, what was it? Who was I going to say it to? Like, we walking home after track, Andre, what I'm going to be like, yeah, dog, Elaine hurt my feelings. Shout out to Elaine because she hurt a lot of feelings. But the point is, what I'm going to do? Elaine hurt my feelings. And I kind of want to sock somebody and fight about it, but what you going to do? Right?
Yeah. Me personally, yeah, I teach my kids that it's okay to be afraid because you can't be brave unless you are afraid.
That's right.
So that's just a nutshell from there. And I teach them to express themselves. I also teach them that don't nobody care about how they feel outside this house.
Nope.
The same way Chris Rock said, don't nobody care about you outside this house.
Nope. And you need to be grateful that you got somebody in this house who actually cares.
Yeah. And you need to be mindful of that. You're going to feel all different kinds of things, and those things are okay. However, you got to remember your feelings are not reality at all times. So assess your role in whatever you're having a problem with first, and then we can go from there. But I tell them, all of them, you don't lie to your doctor, your accountant, or your lawyer. And I'm all of those people.
Yes.
For you until you get on your feet. But those are 3 people you don't. If you
until
lie
you can hire one, until you can hire one.
Yeah. You don't lie to your doctor, your lawyer, or your accountant. You lie to everybody else. You can lie to me if you want to. Not your doctor, your lawyer, or your accountant. We'll figure it out. Whatever you done got yourself into, tell me the truth because I'm your only advocate because I don't like surprises. Don't have me looking stupid.
Here I'm bumping for you, and then you show up and it's like, oh, you did it?
Right. Right. You the problem. But yeah, that's it. And again, my kids don't have the same urgency or rage or anything that I had because they lived a different existence. Even though Utah's racist is all get out, it still was, Mayberry. Like
Utah.
It was still, white bread, suburban, leave it to Beaver. Nah, real talk. Like, like it was cool out there. You know what I'm saying? Until it wasn't.
Yeah. Right.
Right. Well, so 2 aspects. One, because I have, a 2-year-old son. So he's going through his, fall down. No. Right. Like all of those things. But like, my 14-year-old daughter, like I remember like having moments where like our thing is going to the movies. We go to the movies all the time or watch shows together and stuff
Yes,
like
you
that.
do.
I
a lot. You watch a lot. I wait until Andre sees the movie.
But I remember watching Hamilton when it first came
I
on
still
Disney
haven't
Plus.
seen that.
And there's a scene in there that's really sad, and my oldest starts crying, and the people in the room started making fun of her, like you being a punk, like, and I'm like, whoa, and I had to step in, like, yo, that's not what we're gonna do. Because like, I mean, it's okay, and I had a conversation with you, like, and most of the time when she does that, or if she feels like she's alone, you know, I was sad too. I almost cried, like, or something to let her know she's not alone in this, because some of y'all, I know this was a topic for some weeks ago, but some of your kids are shooting up schools because they don't know how to express themselves. But
there's no safe space for them,
right?
To express anything.
Yeah, the older I didn't got, like when I watch like the draft or any of these E3, E60 joints, man, boy, I swear somebody cutting onions around this mug, boy.
Yep.
Anytime somebody overcomes something, I just Lord.
I saw the guy, the running back the Bengals drafted from Illinois in the 4th round. His twin brother got drafted, I think 2 rounds ahead of him. The safety, correct.
They're from Canada.
Correct.
And then they moved down to Florida. I seen they whole
Now here's the thing. I saw that boy weeping in his brother's arms when he got drafted by the Bengals.
Lost it.
And I was just like, you know, like,
or when old boy from the Cowboys drafted his son.
What,
man?
That phone call had me.
But you gay. But I guess his daddy was gay for that.
But you know what? But the thing is, the reason why I bring it up is because literally this past weekend. Now I mentioned to you, my son's 14. This past weekend, my daughter, we had her birthday party, and my son was upset about something, and I remember because he started crying. But he was private. He was away from everybody because I went looking for him. Like, what's wrong? He shared with me what's going on. I was like, that's fine. Take as much time as you need. Like, I mean, you're feeling something. He needed a nap. Like, he was just tired. He was exhausted, really, just from life, and it was just overwhelming him. But I remember thinking, when I saw him taking his nap in his room, I remember thinking to myself, I would have gotten verbally assaulted if my parents had saw me crying. Not and right now they'll tell you, "Oh, we would have never done such a thing." I'm like, man, listen, I still remember what happened. Right, literally hog wash. Okay, because I remember thinking I would have gotten it was literally weaponized against me. Right. Like, you ain't never gonna get
something
nowhere
to cry about
all day long. But they wouldn't even go there when they was just like, man, you gonna have to toughen up. You gonna have to be stronger than that. And I'm thinking, man, I'm carrying the weight of the world on my shoulders with no help. But I would have been criticized. And frankly, that's something that my wife and I have consciously, I guess you could say, have screened our children from some of that harsh mentality that, frankly, our families still carry, both my wife's side of the family and my side of the family. But that whole, that's not tough. That's not masculine. That's not strong. Like, you're going to have to accept the fact that that's the world. I'm like, yeah, but when he comes home, that's the one place he should be able to get away from the rest of the world.
He should be able to cry at his house.
Walk in the door, close it, kick your shoes off. And if you fall into pieces, we gon' whatever you got to do. But like you said, Paul, when you get up in the morning, you got to go to work or go to school, or you out there at the game. Just know that nobody cares about those feelings. And you're going to be called names. You're going to be criticized. And you have to put on that mask to some degree. But it has to be safe at home.
Right. And I'm not even knocking society for not caring. Because and follow me on this, because one of the
we all got problems.
When I speak to kids, and
I do for kids though. You need to care about kids.
I'm not saying they like. I'm talking about like as we get older and grow and things like that. Like, we still live in a results-based world. Did you or did like life comes down to a bunch of yes, no answers. Did you or did you not do it? Yes or no?
Yeah.
Did you accomplish the task or did you not accomplish the task? Did you do your homework or did you not do? Like,
did you show up?
Like the reasons, the
What?
reasons don't like the reasons are something that make you feel better, like to be able to justify it. But at the end, okay, but did you or did you not do it? Like, and so that's the one thing I try to teach, you know, my children is the world is a bunch of yes, no questions. Like that's life. But your feelings are still valid. I will never invalidate anybody's feelings about how they feel about a situation. Yeah. But my style and who I am as a person is, okay, but now what? And any of my friends like that are in their 40s, going on 50s or whatever, or Billy or Paul, if y'all came to me with and just had a venting session, I'd listen 100%. I'm a great listener. I would listen. And then at the end of the conversation, so how are we gonna fix this? Like that's just that's always been who I've been. And so but I still allow that space. Now, again, me saying I'm a great listener, somebody's listening and be like, that's gay. But my thing is there's always like I learn more from listening than I do from talking. Like so like everybody in the room can't compete for space. Like or at least I don't have a desire to compete with other people for talking room. Y'all can have it. I'll hang out in the background. I'm good. But that's where it gets this weird juxtaposition of all of the rules that make things, you know, quote unquote gay is I'm not necessarily the whole I'm erasing my gender and I'm non-binary and all this stuff. I mean, to each their own on that, but like to the rules, like I don't understand why we still maintain these rules, because I've said this and I called heat and I got blocked. I've gotten cussed out. I've had all kinds of things. Nobody ever did to my face, but like my whole point was like, if you see gay in everything, bro, maybe it's not everything.
Maybe it's projection.
I mean,
let's just call it what it is.
Yeah,
maybe it's projection.
Everything, like I mean, kids can't eat bananas. I know a guy, son had colic. His son had colic, and he would not give him a pacifier because it's like sucking on.
Come on,
yeah, there you. But I'm like, why? Like, I don't understand, like, why we have to take everything.
Maybe it's me. Maybe my mind is messed up because I'm just like I was telling you about the guy years ago back when I was at TSU. There was another person I remember, and this wasn't even too long ago. They were like, he said he felt uncomfortable, and this was like really strange for me. TMI, earmuff moments here for if you got kids watching. Shame on you if you got kids watching this in the first place or listening. But he said he was uncomfortable with his wife being on top because it felt like she was in control. And I didn't even have a heart to tell him, right? Like you're missing out on like 70% of the sex game just because you're caught up in positions. And that brings me to kind of what you were saying, Andre. I find that part of the credibility in the conversation is the sourcing. And I find that also things like emotions, they're universal. I don't care if you're transgender and you've gone through the sex change. You still experience sorrow. You still experience discomfort. You still experience anger, frustration, sadness, joy, peace, happiness, sadness,
pleasure, whatever it may be,
melancholy, whatever it is. You're going to feel it because those are not things that have anything to do with testosterone or estrogen. I don't care if it's chemical, your sexuality. None of that is binding to those other things. And so I find that what we do, unfortunately, and we've been talking about from the context of being boys and young kids, that's unfortunately what society has, if you want to say, thrust on us, is this idea that we have to choose. Like if you're either going to be a man or you're going to experience emotions. And it's like, no, that's not only is that not a good choice or a bad set of choices, that's a false choice. That's completely a false choice. Like we've assigned emotions where They're not. Just like I may present anger in a different way than Paul might present anger. It doesn't mean that it's not there, but it also doesn't mean that he should not express it or he should feel uncomfortable about feeling it just because, well, I don't want to look too masculine in this moment. You know, I want to keep
we
the
black
room
men, we
balanced.
cannot get angry in public.
I can't get angry in private. I can't think angry thoughts or they will arrest me. Right? Like I walk in the room, they be like, wait a minute, you ain't smiling. Like I mean, I'm not happy in the moment. I mean, I'm okay though. I'm good. You know, I ate something and I slept with, but that's part of that. That's unfortunately part of the roles that we have to be willing to reject, in my opinion.
Right. So one last question before we close this. Because now, I mean, so for people who watch the show and don't remember, I work in corporate America, and corporate America.
Congratulations.
It ain't. We all got sacrifices we got to make
right
to chase dreams. That's where we at. But corporate America has made a push in the last decade or so to more normalize like being gay, and with Pride Month coming up and corporations celebrating Pride and all of that, and to still see the vitriol for corporations trying to be inclusive, it's a weird space for me. Like because I've always been inclusive of everybody. Like I truly, I know we talk on this show from a black male perspective, but all of us are friends with. I'm pretty safe to say pretty much every race, creed, color, gender dynamic, sexual preference, like all of us are friends with all of that. And so it always
neighborhood hero is gay. Our neighborhood hero is gay.
Literally.
Yeah.
So it throws me for it throws me for a loop when people are still intolerant of or accepting of whatever, like that whole culture, and like being acknowledged and being included. Like you see television where they add, a gay person to Sesame Street or a gay person to a show, and like people lose it. Like I'm not like, I get it if it might at first make, oh, what was it? Like, jump back a little bit, but like it's a normal part of life. Like I don't understand the sheltering to try to insulate yourself from that, because it's just like how white people tried to insulate themselves from us, and like we here, like the gay people are here. Like
you brought us here,
right? You can't run like from like there's certain neighborhoods you can live in, cool, but you can't isolate yourself from an entire race. You at least at this point, not in America. You can do it in some other countries where the population is controlled, but and so I feel the same way about sexuality and all of that, where you can't insulate yourself and you can't insulate your kids from that. Like it's just a matter of where we are as a reality. We've tried as a society to make it more comfortable for people to come out and to live their best selves. And one thing, because the last two companies I work for, their main mantra was bring your authentic self to work. And so you had it where people who are now more comfortable with sharing, okay, I'm a gay male, I'm a gay female, or what have you. And so how do we navigate, or do we just let the bigots be the bigots? Like, how do we navigate through that space when it's where people are trying to be more acceptable? And I'm definitely curious on Billy's perspective, being that the church is the most
zero tolerance,
but yet they still do it. Kind of community, because you can't tell me nobody's gay that goes to church. Like
right.
And in the Catholic Church, we've seen some experiences where
the admin is gay.
So
I mean, at the very least. At the very least.
So what say you, Billy, on surrounding that subject?
I'll say it in two different ways, and it's really simple for me. Number one is I teach my son. There are 3 rules to sexuality, right? This is what I've taught him. Because, we talk very candidly and openly about this. I tell him, number one is that you never, ever, under any circumstances, I don't care how long you've been married, I don't care what the situation is, you never take it.
Mm-hmm.
It should never be a situation where you take it.
Mm-hmm.
That's number one. Number two is always do no harm.
Mm-hmm.
Meaning it should not be something, if it causes any type of stress, trauma, or it literally, and I ain't talking about like y'all was really getting at it and it was rough. I'm talking about if it causes somebody to have to, if they got to go spend some money in counseling, or if they got to go to the hospital or something, then that's not okay. It should be something that is healthy in that way. And then the third thing is, I told him, and I made it very clear to him that everybody is not where you are. Okay. And especially at his age now, being a teenager, there are some people who are more developed and more, they've had more sexual experiences or less sexual experiences. And so what ends up happening is you will find yourself in a situation with somebody who they're having a conversation with you about sex, but you're not having the same conversation. So always be mindful of the fact that just because you're 14 and she may be 14 or something like that, they are not having the same conversation with you. Now, I frame it that way and how I taught that to my son, because it's for him at this stage is I just frankly don't want him to get caught up in something that he's not ready for. But as it pertains to the church, I find that the same rules should apply, but where I feel like churches, pastors, teachers so often fail is they fail to model what you actually see in the Gospels when you're looking at Christ himself. What you see in the New Testament, what you see here, what God is concerned with. God is not nearly as concerned, and I don't have time for it right now, but I've done the work. God is not nearly as concerned about people's sexuality as much as he's concerned about people being hurt. It wasn't just that you had this adulterous woman. It's what are you doing to get to the point where this woman is adulterous, right? That's why Jesus, when he said, "He who's without sin cast the first stone," it wasn't about the sexual interaction. It wasn't like, okay, was she on top, or was it missionary, or was it doggy shot? No, it was, you are exploiting women. That is what Jesus was concerned with. And so I say that from the standpoint of this conversation about that's gay. People who choose to be gay because that is their preference, I think that is a totally different conversation, even in the context of what the church puts us out there as sin and righteousness and holiness. People who choose to be that way because that is their experience and that is what they've explored is a totally different conversation than the part that nobody wants to talk about, especially in the church, which is sexual abuse and sexual exploitation. There are a lot of people that once you start pulling back on the layers, you find that they're not gay because they actually, oh, I was born this way. No, they were turned out. They were actually exploited. There's actually some pain or trauma. And it may not even be something as simple as you were actually raped. It could be lots of other things, what you were exposed to, because your sexuality gets developed at a very young age. And so it's important that the church be less interested in how you're getting down than how did you even get to the place? Because it doesn't matter. Even if heterosexuals are out here tripping too. Heterosexuals are out here exploiting people. Like what? So I'm supposed to feel better about you because you didn't rape a little boy? You raped a girl?
Right.
You raped a woman.
That is some real logic
kid.
that people are out here actually exhibiting.
Actually, and they're and actually going 10 toes down on the conversation as though that, and that's unfortunately where a lot of people, and I'll be honest with you, you talking about taking heat. Like there's a lot of very conservative, very narrow-minded people, and they think, oh, well, you're condoning. I said, I'm not condoning any type of sin or bad behavior or people running foul against God. What I'm saying is Jesus was interested in healing. And if a person gets healed and a person works through their trauma, like I'm not gay. I've never thought about being gay, but I've definitely experienced some sexual trauma. And so are we interested in me getting healed, or are we okay with my trauma? Are we okay with the pain and some of the things that come, some of the hurts that came with it, because it didn't involve a boy? It didn't involve another man. And so that's kind of where I come down on it. I feel like the church needs to be more interested in doing the work of Jesus instead of it's icky and it's disgusting and it's not
Right.
It's not what I get. I don't, that I'm gonna just be honest with you. I see a lot of men out there, heterosexual men out there, and I be seeing some of the women. It's like, if that's what you want, man, then whatever. But it's got nothing to do with their morality. It's got nothing to do with where they stand before the eyes of God, because there's a lot of other things that's going to separate you from God that have nothing to do with, where your penis lands.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my take on it.
What say you, Paul?
Jeez. As far as the church and the gay, or
well, no, just the acceptance in society. I just wanted to hear Billy's take on it because he is with the heathens.
right.
He prays over them. So
Of course. I live. This is odd. Now I've lived in South Florida, Salt Lake, and Portland.
You ain't got no consistency.
But you know what they do have all in common?
Mm.
All pretty gay cities.
Yeah.
Mm.
Because there's a lot of suppression in all those places, or vilification, or shame.
Well, not in Portland and South Florida. You can do whatever you want in South Florida and in Portland.
No,
Portland
I'm talking.
Called keep Portland weird on purpose.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But it amazed me that Salt Lake had just as gay a presence as those other two cities. You wouldn't know that given the religion and all of that control and everything, but it's literally a byproduct of it at the end of the day. With we could go back and the polygamy. Only the guys who had some bread could get the women, and they got all the women they could they got all the women.
They took them all because they could afford it.
Yeah.
Literally.
So I've noticed in our mainstream media, in all facets of it, all genres, that they've made space for gay and trans characters. But I like to believe that we always but they've been token type characters. Now we're having entire series and shows.
The storyline actually, it's not just a all here's the gay guy, right?
Yeah, it's not like here introducing there's a special guest star this episode, new gay guy for 2 or 3 weeks. Right now they have entire shows
in the credits too.
Right, new gay guy. Right.
We need a gay character. Somebody call Paul in. You know what I'm saying? Like
you stupid.
Just saying.
What you do is now you have the whole storylines and like every character on the show is gay and all of that sort of stuff, which I guess in my perspective is kind of unrealistic. Just like in all the black shows and all the white shows, all the characters are black, and in all the white shows, all the characters are white. Like, can we have like diverse media and character development? Like, when are we going to get that? Because it's all homogenous. Like if it's a gay show, everybody's gay. If it's a black show, everybody's black. White show, everybody's white. Right? Asian show, everybody's Asian.
You mentioned this, and I thought about, like, you mentioned Empire when we were talking. What was that, last episode? Because we were talking about the whole culture thing, and I remember watching with my wife, because this was right before COVID kind of had us all locked in. But we were watching the show. And I remember thinking to myself, like, Lee Daniels is going out of his way. And I frankly, just to be candid, I applaud the effort to introduce these types of characters. But I felt like he was going out of his way to kind of throw it in your face. Right. And
he was talking about the entertainment industry, though.
But that's my point, is that for some people,
it kind of tracked.
That's what I'm saying. People who aren't as familiar with how the sausage gets made in the entertainment industry don't realize everybody who's ever ever cut a record, ever acted, ever been behind the scenes, they know that, you know, homosexuality is a fixture in these
Yes.
spaces. But my whole thing is that I personally find that where we have, and Andre mentioned this word intolerance, I kind of want to come back to it.
Mhm.
Where we find the most intolerance are people who, frankly, are not willing to admit that they've got some questions, or they've got some trauma, or they've got some misgivings, or they've got there's something that it's kind of like I was saying. If I see somebody out here, if I see a man, if I'm walking down the street and I see a man kissing another man, I might look at that and be like, huh. And I keep on driving. No matter how I feel about it, I keep on driving. It's the people who jump out of the car, I want to punch them and kick them and hit them with a bat. That is a symptom of a problem that you have. And that goes back to the larger conversation we've been talking about. Everything is not gay. And even if
Right.
it is, no,
Right.
seriously,
So
even
what?
if it is, don't you have somewhere to be at 3 o'clock?
Right.
Don't you got
Why
to pick
can't-
up your kids?
Right. Ain't you got some heterosexual activities to get to?
Don't you have a wife? You know, or something, husband, whatever it is. Like, why are you? Because I'm an equal. That's what I was going to say. I am an equal opportunity, no public display of affection person. I don't care if it's a man or woman over there lip locking. I'm like, man, y'all need to take that home. So I'm not one of those people that's like, ooh, I'm uncomfortable with gay people, or, you know, seeing these characters acting out scenes in television and movie. I just find that people need to, and man, I know it sounds kind of cliche and almost lazy, but it's like, man, mind your business. Go do the work for yourself. Because if you're
Change the
concerned about
channel.
gay, and if you're concerned about gay people that much, go do the work, spend the money, get a therapist, and figure out why you so mad at gay people. Because I
Right.
promise you, it's the same thing when we talk about racism. I'm not thinking about these white people that's racist towards me. I
Right.
promise you, I'm not thinking about you. I really just want to go to work, go home, pick up my kids. We got a game tonight. I ain't thinking about you. And in the same way, these gay people are not thinking about you. Yes, you have the occasional ones that they want to, the affirmation, the attention, that kind of thing. But generally speaking, I promise you, they're not thinking about you. Why are you worried about it? So what if I got a cat?
Yeah, the Wades ain't tripping on you.
Man.
Magic and his son ain't tripping on you. They living their life.
And neither are your favorite athletes who you buy their products, buy their shoes, drink the same drink because you're influenced by that. Trust me when I tell you, they don't care.
No, not at all.
They go home and lock the door.
You said drink your drink, and I forgot the one thing. I had a chick not go out with me anymore because I drink my water like this.
Bruh, it must be a GCL. I don't know. Is it a GCL thing or a 4 o'clock thing or something? Because I promise you, I've been doing it. And here's the thing. I've heard that same thing too.
Yeah.
You know what used to be the funniest part about high school is when they used to call us XFAGs, and they also went to boys' school.
Yeah.
I would hear that from elder kids and molder kids. Y'all would call us XFAGs. And I'm like, well, hey, man, y'all ain't got no girls at y'all school either.
Right.
I didn't, but
Andre was like,
I know Andre wasn't one of them, but you know, you've heard the term.
Oh, no, I have. No, absolutely. Yeah. But I used to sit there and think, just like you said, we ain't got no broads here. But you know, I've always been a long-term thinker, so so that's that. But no, I appreciate the conversation because this is a good one.
And I'm gonna keep sleeping on my stomach. I'm gonna keep drinking like this.
I had a banana earlier.
And you know what? Yes, because I need my potassium. And you know what? I sleep better on my stomach. It actually keeps me from snoring. So kick rocks.
Facts.
All right, so I'm gonna handle the APB for this episode, and I'm on the lookout just to kind of tie it up with the the ending of our episode, I'm looking for adults to like to acknowledge progress. Everything ain't a plant. Everything's not some kind of deep dark conspiracy theory
Deep state, FBI,
to
CIA.
indoctrinate your children to become gay. Like, that's not how this works. As they said in the commercial, that's not how any of this works. So I am looking for acceptance and tolerance, though. I think we've had far too many situations where gay community has been attacked. And it's useless rhetoric, like the shooting in Orlando that happened, and just things like that, where people aren't willing to accept that they're sharing a space with somebody who may not look or act or think like them. And so my APB is just for genuine decency. That's really all it is. Like, when people ask me, do I care would I care if my daughter or son grew up gay? I far more care about them, and my direct answer is I far more care about them not being a jerk than anything else. I just want to raise good people. Like, everything else from there is ancillary. And so I'm looking for the good people to put their arms around others who may not look, think, or talk like them. Because as we have alluded to, this world needs a lot more healing and a lot more love coming from every facet. I'm like, people are losing jobs, people losing houses, people losing kids. I got enough to worry about on my plate as opposed to who you sleeping with, and I don't care. Like, I never have, never will. Just be good people and be good to other people is really what my APB is out there. So that's me.
I want to add to your APB, and I want to challenge the LGBTQ plus community, because I have some dear friends and family members in this community who are people of color. And I want to challenge that community to abandon their whiteness in their movement and join together in their struggle. Because I hear this from my friends that are in this movement, that movement is largely segregated and dedicated directly just toward white men and women.
Similar to the women's liberation movement, they were white first before they were LGBT.
And they're still white before they are part of the community. So I want to challenge those people who really are on the front lines and got these black and brown bodies marching with you and taking arrows for you out in the public sphere. Right. I want you to be more inclusive of their beliefs, struggles, and everything. Because from what I understand, it's supposed to be an LGBTQ movement, not just an offshoot of the white movement.
Yeah. Well, since we're adding on and glomming on to this APB, I'm gonna make this really simple and sweet. To the faith community out there, to the churches out there, imagine being a hospital that refuses to treat somebody who's sick because they came in and they didn't represent something that you thought was okay. Now, we're not even going to deal with the fact that you think it's okay and you're wrong for not thinking that something is okay, because it really is none of your business. But imagine turning somebody down. And too often churches, part of the problem that we have is that people are actually trying to get some spiritual healing. Sometimes their sexual preferences, sexual activities, the way that they emote themselves sexually, it stems from trauma. Like, the stats, everybody can't be lying when they say 1 out of every 3 women in this country will be sexually assaulted or sexually abused. And for men also, 1 out of every 6 men are going to experience some type of rape or molestation or be exposed to something that is traumatizing sexually. And with all of that sexual trauma and tension going around, it is a failure on the church's part to be the gatekeepers and screen people at the door, like you cannot get the help and the attention that you need because I don't approve of your sexual identity. And so my APB is for churches who are willing to be like myself and a handful of others that I affiliate with that are willing to not judge, but actually just listen and allow people to show up with maybe not even about their sexuality. I'm talking about just in general, maybe they're going through a struggle. Maybe spiritually they're going through something. You can't ever claim to represent Christ and be a man of faith if you're not going to be somebody who is willing to even let them in and allow them to have a space to be open. So my APB is, and I'm sure, I'll do it again. I've done it before, but I'm looking for churches and people who are of faith, who are willing to actually walk the talk, like actually be like Christ and, not be afraid of things that you think might be dirty. All right, well, we're out. We want to thank you once again for joining us for yet another episode of The Gray Matters. We appreciate every last one of you who take the time to listen, to watch us. We would also like to remind you just to make sure to subscribe to our podcast. Make sure that you follow us on all of our platforms. We'd love to keep you up to date on all the different things that we've got going on. We got a lot more exciting things coming up for season 2. So definitely want to make sure that you follow us and stay aware. With that, we say thank you once again, and we are out. Have a good day. Be blessed.
And be kind. Peace.
Peace.
So a preacher, a stay-at-home dad, and a rapper walk into a bar.
I am my ancestors back from the grave, no longer a slave, beat to the gods, meal, pray, surviving my day. A threat to society, cause Malcolm showed me the way. I'm young, black, intelligent.
Oh, now they afraid.
It's too late, I am the king, I am the spark to the brain. I am the light that fought the dark and now you're seeing the rain. I am the thing they spent their whole life killing. To find out, I am the rose that grew from under their building. This ain't for likes, this is a fight so you can open your mind. Peel the scab back, reveal the blood and see what we'll find.
I promise.
Like LeBron, I am just one of a kind. No longer will I accept the blind, leading the blind. Keep it a buck, say what I want, not giving a screaming afterward like Park until the day my heart stops. And when I do, remember when I take my last breath, just remind the tape and witness all the knowledge I left. The great. So I said, a preacher, a stay-at-home dad, and a rapper walk into a bar. The Gray Matters.